And in today's session, we will talk about the mastering sales in the digital era. And for this discussion, let me invite my friend from UK, Mr. Jeremy Plain.
Thank you very much, CK. Great to be back.
It's great to see you, and you're back in your castle, Jeremy.
I am back in. I am back in my castle. I know that you'd be very upset if I wasn't back in my castle. So yes, I'm back here.
Great. So, Jeremy, I think the discussion is about uh, basically the paradigm shift in the business, where the businesses are struggling in terms of finding new clients. And I think there's a lot to do with how they approach the market in terms of their lead generation exercise, their different marketing campaigns, how they engage with the client. So there are a lot of new aspects of generating business which are undergoing tremendous changes. So I think I would like to know from you where we are today in 2020 and what is the business has to do to stay relevant with regard to finding new clients.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask because before we even hit this year that we've talked about during some of our sessions, is that many organizations, as we know, were struggling with so-called digital transformation, transforming their organizations for the more digital era. We're working more remotely. We were working more remotely. We were doing things in different ways. From a point of view of marketing and sales, we were doing marketing in a different way, digital marketing, more direct and targeted marketing. And then from a selling point of view, we were having to do a lot more, be more analytical, embrace data, also be expert networkers, because that was also how we would grow our business through prospecting as much as with existing customers. So where we are now in this year that has accelerated a lot of these trends is that many sales organizations have been left behind a little bit because sales is one of those areas within business that hasn't, in my experience, transformed so much. Now, I work obviously, and I have a consulting stroke training business, and I have been in learning and development for many years now. And I do criticize my own industry about this because what I see out there for sales training, let's say, and sales coaching are the same things that we've been doing for years and years and years, just repackaged and repackaged for now. What we haven't done is make that jump and evolve it forward. In fact, that's something that myself, I really made a strong decision to do and to challenge myself. So what it actually has done, it gives me two things to show you really, the past now and the future now. And I say now in there because it's happening. So the past now is traditional selling, but it's still in place with many organizations. It's still products and solutions focused. We have sales professionals. It's very driven by the human touch and face-to-face touch, which has been challenged this year. We know our competitors. We're driven by KPIs. We have traditional skills that we are still trained in, which are still valid, of course, by the way, questioning skills, presentation, value proposition, objection handling. But if we fast forward to the more enlightened organizations who are future now, they see selling differently. They've moved from solution selling to customer and consumer journeys, understanding at each point in the customer where they can impact positively to add even better value for them. So this is creating great experiences, engaging the overall organization, not just our buyer or the people that we're used to seeing. Being digitally enabled, using technology to help us, being data experts, data-driven decision-making, helping our customers understanding through data what the strategy might be moving forward, etc. And understanding that we live in hyper-competitive times. So we know some of our competitors, but we don't know the competitors who will come tomorrow. So we need to be agile, ready to act. So in terms of our own skills, we need to be far more connected to the underbelly of the industry. We need to be great on LinkedIn. We need to be at industry events. This year, we need to do it online. We need to reach out and we need to be industry spokespeople. So we need to not only be experts in our products and services, but also in our industry and create a voice for ourselves. So it's actually creating a very different brand. The mindset is moving from target mindset, I must hit my targets, to growth mindset, which is what do I need to do to hit my results now, but how do we grow in the long term as well? And how do I use digital to enable all of that for collaboration, communication, customer mobilization, customer engagement, and doing this all together? So these are the things that are happening now, and many organizations are still in the past now, whereas the more enlightened and potentially more successful ones are future now.
So, Jeremy, I think the biggest challenge any sales guy will face, whether you are a CEO or you are a sales manager, is basically making the customer remember you. And one of the key aspect of that is you don't want to look like a Me Too player when you meet the customer. And when everybody is getting on to the digital platform, somehow there is a new skill required to get into that or get out of Me Too syndrome. What do you suggest to our viewers how they should leverage the digital platform to not be part of a Me Too ocean and get out of from Me Too?
Well, it's really interesting question, that, because the Me Too versus the competitive advantage was always about the product, the service, the solution. What has emerged this year through this intense period of remote working, remote selling, is that relationships are trumping traditional solutions, services, and so on. So creating very strong human touch relationships, albeit remotely, like we're talking here, helping the customer through this very challenging period as much as working ourselves, is actually giving the very best salespeople out there competitive advantage. So in the digital era, the human touch becomes more important than it ever was. In fact, that you can do more digitally, so you can be more connected. So we're seeing much more less of the formal selling. So my hour meeting at a client, much more of the short 15-minute, 20-minute meetings with one agenda point, but also the informal communication via platforms like WhatsApp, for example, whereby we're exchanging much more than we used to do and keeping in touch, very much also from the human side of things. Empathy is being demonstrated, an understanding of where we all are in the situation. But the very best salespeople out there, if you consider them, there is a growing gap between them and those salespeople who are still more traditional, who are still saying in their minds, no, you can't do selling without having a very strong human touch and being face to face. This is a myth. You can actually have an even closer relationship. So there's a sense of readiness and a sense of mindset within sales professionals to switch to think, how do I become better? Because actually it's upskilling myself in areas that I haven't been able to work with before, working remotely, the technology, being digitally enabled, being great networkers, all of these things. What's interesting, a piece of data has come out from Spotio that talks about, in the B2B and B2C spaces, buyers who are now buying through trusted referrals to people or companies has increased from 60% to 92% in this era in terms of remote working. So it goes to prove what I'm saying, is that the human touch is trumping the traditional services and solutions that we have. Of course, we have to get that right, but actually being able to do digital and create great relationships remotely like this is great, because they'll pick up referrals like that, and over 50% are actively following them up. So that's a prize worth having by getting this right.
So I think, in nutshell, what you're saying is that you have to up your skill of networking, because now you're not physically visible to the client. You have to do digitally. I think that is one tip, very important tip. And people who are watching this program, they have to get that essence of what Jeremy is saying. That means you have to do networking, and the challenges are that you need to pick up digital skills to be able to become a good marketeer, a good salesperson, or a good network person. Well,
In fact, CK, I mean, I have to use you as an example here, don't I? Really, because you're doing exactly what I'm talking about here. So you have your own products and services, but you're doing so much more than that for the industry. If I look at your the videos that you publish, the live videos that you publish every day, every week, you're adding so much value around topics in terms of life, business, work, personal, the human touch. And it's giving you, it's increasing your brand, not just in terms of what you used to do in products and services, but actually there's so much more that you offer out there as value add. So therefore, you've got people who are far more now willing to have a conversation with you about your business services because you're actually doing so much more for the community, for the business industry that you're in, and outside it, of course, but also that demonstrating that strong human touch and bringing people in from all over the world. So it's, you know, and we met by doing exactly what we talked about, this networking. It's network to get work, right? So this is what we were doing. And I think you and your company is a fantastic example of this.
so, Jeremy, thank you so much for recognizing. I think we are doing our bit, but I think that brings me to the third question, which is very relevant. You see, when we go out and meet the client, we are always judging whether he is the person to target or follow up in future. That means whether he has the money, authority, or need. So every sales guy is looking for these three qualities in the client also. When the client is looking at a salesperson, the salesperson is also making a judgment. So I think in the digital arena, the qualification or the client qualification is becoming a big challenge. Would you like to give some ideas how a qualification can be done using digital platform?
Yeah, well, this goes back to my original point is that sales has not evolved fast enough. So the way for me to describe the challenge that you talk about is the ability to up our game as a sales professional or as a sales rep. So if I go back 10 years, what key account management was yesterday is being a sales professional today. So it's actually you're having to move from so the thing is that traditionally, when we look at how salespeople have been recruited, and I remember because I was a salesperson, I started my career in Procter and Gamble, and I was recruited into Procter and Gamble. And it was based largely on personality. I had an outgoing personality. I got really excited and passionate about stuff. And this was a really key trait of a salesperson. And it still is. We have to be able to do that. And we have to be able to create good relationships. However, I remember then my analytical skills weren't so good, but that was fine because I was going into sales. Right now, you need great analytical skills and more strategic skills. So the very best salespeople out there who are looking to develop themselves need to understand that in order, let's say, for example, to absolutely penetrate a customer or a prospect in the best way, they need to be prepared to do some research. So they can go onto LinkedIn, they can look at industry papers, they can look at company reports, get in there, look at who the key players are, and start to think about how they grow their network within their company by, first of all, who they know, and then moving forward in terms of not just going directly to call a person, but doing exactly what we said before. Start raising their profile in the industry as an industry spokesman person so that they can then start to share things, so they can start to tag people in posts, let's say for on LinkedIn, that they know are key decision makers in their prospects or targeted customers or people that they haven't known. Reach out and say, hello, I work with your company. It's really great. It's an honor to meet you. I'd love to connect. And here's something that I published about the challenges in our industry that I think you might find interesting. So it's starting with the informal and moving up. So it takes far deeper, greater skills as just being a sales rep, in the old language that we used to do. This is about now being a sales professional. And it's what we used to call being a much more experienced key account manager or strategic salesperson. So we need to up our game or else we're going to fail, CK.
In fact, Jeremy, in fact, I like to quote your last session, and you very explicitly quoted about having the new skills. And what I see is that many of these standard established leaders are finding it very tough to network in this arena because they had already established name in the physical world, and to replicate that in the digital arena, they have to do the whole thing all over again, and they are finding it very tough to do it, and they are still living in the past and behaving very high-handed, in a very high-handed manner, while tackling with people digitally, because they are not used to it. So I think it's very clear that people have to get used to digital empathy, as you mentioned in the beginning of our show today. uh, the fourth question really for me is, where they can get acquire these skills, because nobody's teaching
Mm.
these skills. I think that is the biggest question we have.
Yeah, yeah, I'm teaching those skills, CK. That was a very nice segue into that. Thank you very much. Because like I said at the beginning, I think it's our duty as learning professionals to challenge ourselves, learn ourselves, and provide those new skill sets on top of the existing skill sets, which is still important because you still need to know how to ask great questions, create great relationships, but you need to do it in the virtual world better, and you need to do it differently. So I spent a lot of time doing that. However, if I look at what's happening more generally out there, then nearly 40% of high growth companies from a sales perspective, they're starting to pivot their sales skills and using inside sales technologies. So in old language, that was call centers. So they were using the skills to boost their selling techniques of how call centers did it. So the call centers know they potentially got 5 to 7 minutes to sell something to a call, maximum, absolute maximum. They've got to create a great first impression. They've got to do this, and they've got to do it repeatedly, time and time again. And they've got to get used to hearing the word no. And they've got to get used to kind of getting up again and going. So what many traditional sales organizations and newer sales organizations are adopting are these skills from inside sales. So those connection skills, and then they're bringing into that. In fact, they're bringing into the new skill sets, and of the new skill sets, 80% of organizations are believing that data analytics expertise is the route to Salesforce competitive advantage. So they're spending a lot of time creating a lot of training around agile working and agile methodologies, data interpretation and analysis, and then therefore to provide insights, and then training on how they actually present that data to a client. So for example, a agile technique like data visualization. So trying to use the least words possible and trying to use pictures to kind of paint the story and tell the story for a client. And storytelling is really at the heart of this, using visuals to help drive a narrative through it. So these are upgraded skills from where we are. And on the job, when you think about kind of management support as well, over 60% of organizations report creative new practices to engage the customers through joint selling online. So for example, here we can do a lot more. I can bring people in to let's see if this was a selling call, I could bring a special guest in to a prospect, say, here, I instead of providing a customer testimonial on a reference, I've got someone who's just going to come in for 5 minutes, tell you about the experience and answer any of your questions, live. Now it's kind of guest practices live, isn't it? I can do joint selling with my manager. I can do far more by coming onto, let's say, a Zoom call like this, one day before a really important meeting and practicing the meeting with my colleagues or my people. And I can record them and view them and start to look at how I interact in the virtual world. Do I provide great eye contact, for example? Do I look into the camera, into your eyes, or am I looking at what I'm presenting on my screen down here? Which is really key for sales. You've got to keep that eye contact and got to keep your body language very positive. So smile, open your eyes quite wide, and be very open. Use body language, although I'm using too much right now, I know. So don't use too much, but use some of it. And you can start to create these brand new skills and understand also the changes that you need to have. Your meeting now might be 15 minutes. So have one or maximum two agenda items with the customer. Pre-prepare them. Talk about upfront what the the outcome is, so you can get down to it when you're on the call. But one thing that has emerged from, you know, 2 or 3 of the customers I've worked with this year, when I've talked to them about what's really worked, they've said spending 5 minutes, even though we've just got, you know, 15 to 30 minutes on the meeting, spending 5 minutes just talking at a human level and connecting around how people are feeling and talking about, you know, demonstrating a bit of empathy and talking about how we are, has made a very, very big difference to engaging and mobilizing customers to be orientated around your products and services and being ready to listen to what you have to say. So a few tips there, I think, CK.
These tips are very valuable. I think people who are struggling and try to start their journey in the digital world, I think they can take the cue from here, which is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure there are a lot of things which you can bring on the table, and there are a lot of things in digital empathy which people need to really learn. Sit in front of a guru like you and learn, pick up those traits which are very important. And I would like to say one more thing before you speak. One is that people used to meet 100 clients in a year before the digital age happened,
Yeah.
and now this factor has you simply multiply this by 1,000. So now people have to realize the power of digital platform. They have ability to address 10,000 clients in a year now. So I think the strategy itself has to completely it's a new strategy. You have to work on a new strategy to be able to talk to 10,000 clients as if you're talking to them face to face, isn't it?
You're right. You're absolutely right. And you know, we've gone from here in traditional selling, let's just say just at sales rep, sales professional level, to what a sales rep, sales professional needs to now is up here. You know, the skill gap from where we were to where we need to be now, just to compete on a normal selling and general selling, is really quite big. So these skills that you talk about, we can engage far more. We can engage at industry level. We can use technology. We can leverage data. We can do so much more, but it takes a modified and upgraded skill set to be a super salesperson in 2020s.
So, Jeremy, I think we had a very fruitful discussion today. There is, tremendous amount of learning from you. There is a lot to it, and people who want to reach out to you, they can reach out to you directly, or they can drop an email. The email will be shared at the end of the video, and we will connect you with the people. So, with this, I'd
Thank
like
you.
to thank you for finding time and joining our show. We will catch up next Tuesday.
Thank you very much, CK, and thank you everyone for listening.
Have a nice day, and bye bye for today.
Bye bye.